friends. I am coming to you again from my office at home, and I'm thinking that for some of you, this picture on my computer will look a little familiar. It's the book that we have been reading at school called Continents, Countries, and Maps. Let me get my computer to come back on. So, for reading today, I thought we would continue reading in this book, and I'll read to you. Good thing is, the packet that we were reading at school, I had to print it off. It was black and white. On the computer, it's color, so you'll get to see what some of those pictures look like. So, again, the title is Continents, Countries, and Maps. And we've read this part of this book, so we know that the main idea of this nonfiction book is all about continents, countries, and maps. So let's review what we read so far. So we read, let's see here, I'm going to scroll down here. So we read, there's a map of the world, and so far we've mostly read about North America. So I'm going to just quickly scroll down. There's the table of contents. We read Finding Your Way Around, all about maps, and we read about North America, the United States, and we were reading right before we had to stay at home. We were reading Chapter 3, North America, Canada, Mexico, and Central America. So let's kind of go down here. Remember, we read about Washington, D.C. and the maps, how maps help us find our way around, about map keys. So I'm not going to read that again, just kind of, it's always good to quickly look back at what we read. We read about what the earth looks like and how much of the earth is covered with water. What's that called? One of our muscle words. Yep, a globe. And then we started reading about North America. How many states are in the United States? Yep, 50. We read about Washington, D.C., where the Capitol and the White House is located, and you guys will all be going to Washington, D.C. When you get older, maybe when you're in 8th grade. We read about New York City and the ocean areas of the Northeast, the southern United States, Florida, the Midwest farms. It's where Wisconsin is. There's plains, remember, flat, grassy areas where there's a lot of farms, mountains in the west, the Grand Canyon, and the Pacific Ocean on the west coast, Alaska, Hawaii. Okay. And then Chapter 3 was all about North America, Canada, Mexico, and Central America. So in the last few weeks before we started homeschooling, we had a lot of first graders who were sick. Some days we had 5 or 6 kids out. So I'm actually going to reread this chapter just to make sure everybody is up to speed on Chapter 3. And for those of you that were in class, it's always good to reread. You always learn or notice things you didn't notice or learn the first time. So here we go. So it says, Canada is on the northern border of the United States. It is the second largest country of the world. And when they say that, they're talking about, there's 2 ways to measure the size of a country. One is by its land, and the other is by its population, the number of people that live there. So when they talk about Canada being the second largest country in the world, they're talking about how big its land area is. The biggest country in the world, by the way, is Russia. But the biggest country in terms of population is China. And Canada does not have a lot of people, as we'll read. So Canada is only big when you think of how large of an area it takes up. And it's Canada, if you look at the map, well, we'll look at a different map on a different page, but Canada is a bigger area than the United States, but more people live in the United States than Canada. In fact, that's what it says here. So it says, Canada is the second largest country in the world. However, fewer people live in Canada than in the United States because the northern part of the country, meaning Canada, is often icy and cold. There are two main languages in Canada, English and French. The capital of Canada is Ottawa. And on this map you see Ottawa, the capital city of a country or a state. Usually the symbol is a star. So Ottawa is right up there. It's just north of the border between Canada and the United States. The capital of the United States is Washington, D.C., which is kind of in the middle of the country. And just for reference, Wisconsin is over here. So we are about 1,000 miles away from Washington, D.C. So going to page 15, that's 14. So the next page is 15. It says Native Canadians, named the Inuit, live in the far north of Canada in the Canadian Arctic. They have lived there for a very long time and know how to hunt, fish, and survive in the ice and snow. Polar bears live there too. So there's the polar bears, and here's a picture of the Native Canadians, the Inuit. And a lot of times we call them, you hear people call them Eskimos also. So now we're going to shift on page 16, going from 15 to 16. Now if you look, we're going to shift from the north of the United States to the south. And what country is to the south? Mexico. And the capital city of Mexico by the star is Mexico City. And I think when we talked about this in class, one of the things we talked about is the butterflies, where the butterflies spend the winter. And the butterflies, the monarch butterflies, they spend their winter right here, kind of between Texas in the United States and Mexico City in the mountains up here. And speaking of the monarch butterflies, by now, you'll be interested to know they have started to make their way north. So they're probably still in Mexico, but they're coming north back towards the United States. And I'm going to make myself a note to try to include a video that shows you how they're doing. I get videos almost every day showing how the monarch butterflies are doing on their journey north. So I'll try to include a video for you the next day or two. All right, so for Mexico, it says Mexico is on the southern border of the United States. It is a land of high mountains, dry deserts, leafy rainforests, and a large central plateau. So a plateau is an area, I'll try to draw it on this sticky note for you. A plateau is an area that rises up above the land and then is flat. So if you have land here and then it rises up and then is flat, that area up on top, that's the plateau. So a large part of Mexico actually is kind of up in the hills or mountains, and then it's flat at the top, and that's a plateau. Plateau is, P-L-A-T-E-A-U. That's a good word, plateau. So it says most people in Mexico live on the central plateau because the land there is good for farming, right? Why would it be good for farming? Well, just like a plain or a field, it's flat, and flat land is good for farming. Mexican farmers grow crops such as corn, sugarcane, wheat, avocados, tropical fruits, and coffee. Okay, so there's Mexico. Well, here's something interesting. It says Mexico has 31 states, right? You remember the United States has 50 states. Mexico has 31 states. Its capital is Mexico City, one of the largest cities in the world. Remember, there's Mexico City. And by the way, next to Mexico City, that's a picture of a pyramids that were built not by the Egyptians, but by the native Mexicans. And we talked about how the native Mexican people, there were three main tribes, and one tribe was called the Mayans, and I'll spell it out for you here because this is kind of cool for our class. Mayans are spelled Mayans. So Maya and Maya come from the word Mayan. Pretty cool, huh? Also, the other group of native Mexicans who would make these pyramids, there's the Incas and the Aztecs. Okay? And those people lived in Mexico before people from Spain came, including Christopher Columbus and some of the people who came from Spain after Christopher Columbus. They lived there until the Spanish came. And so a lot of the people in Mexico are either, their great-great-great-great-great-grandparents are either Mayan, Inca, Aztec, or Spanish from Spain. And that's why the main language in Mexico is Spanish. And that's why it is so cool that you guys are learning Spanish. So this is actually a pyramid from either the Mayans or the Inca or the Aztecs. And they used the pyramid partly as it was like their big church or cathedral where they would pray to their gods. All right, so I got off track, but it's so cool to learn about this stuff. So it says Mexico has 31 states. Its capital is Mexico City, one of the largest cities in the world. Many people in Mexico speak Spanish, although some people also speak the languages of their Aztec and Maya ancestors. Right? Ancestors are like their great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents. Mexican people enjoy celebrating their culture, which is rich in food, music, dance, and art. Those beautiful dresses they're wearing. All right, so we're just going to read to the end of this chapter today, and then tomorrow we'll read the next chapter. So the next part, this chapter was all about North America. We read about Canada. We read about the we already read about the United States, Canada, Mexico, and then below Mexico, the bottom part of North America are some smaller countries. So it's to the south, getting closer to the equator, in the middle of the earth. So below Mexico are some countries like Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. And those countries are much smaller than Mexico. They are also countries where originally the Mayans and the Inca and the Aztec lived there. And they are also countries that the Spanish who came after Christopher Columbus settled there. And so in these countries, the people also speak Spanish, and they speak the language of their Mayan, Inca, and Aztec ancestors. All right, So it says, to the south of Mexico is Central America. This long, narrow area of land connects North America and South America. There are 7 small countries in Central America. And those countries again are Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. It says Nicaragua is the largest country in Central America, and El Salvador is the smallest. That's 18, so this is page 19. It says Central America has mountains and volcanoes. It has beautiful beaches and green rainforests. Farmers in Central America grow coffee, bananas, and pineapples. In the waters of the Caribbean Sea, near Florida in the United States and northern South America, there are a number of islands called the West Indies. One of these islands, Puerto Rico, is part of the United States. The capital of Puerto Rico is San Juan. So this, I'm pretty sure, is a picture of the capital of Puerto Rico. Yep, because there's the Puerto Rican flag and the United States flag, the flag of the United States of America. So you don't see it on this map. I'm going to go back up here because this is a map of a bigger area. So here's Mexico, Central America, and then up here the United States, Florida. So further off to the east, here's a little bit of Cuba, and then Puerto Rico and some of the islands that Christopher Columbus bumped into. Remember, he thought he was going to the Indies near Indonesia, near China and India, but he bumped into these islands, so they're called the Indies, and that's why the people there were called the Indians. And one of the islands in the Indies is Puerto Rico, which is actually a territory of the United States. But in Puerto Rico, the main language is Spanish. Also in the Indies is the Dominican Republic, which is where our sister parish, La Sagrada Familia, is located. All right, so that's all we're going to read today. But here's a sneak peek for tomorrow. We're going to read about South America, the continent of South America. There's a good look at the map. All right, first graders, excellent job. I will read with you tomorrow. Since they speak Espanol in Central America and in the Indies and in Mexico, I bid you adios.